is Adinda Amalia. We are Group 7 from Phonetics and Phonology B class of English Study Program in Universitas Indonesia 2018 batch. Do you know about phonetics and phonology? So, phonetics and phonology is a general theory about speech sounds and how they are used in language. Do you often have troubles in pronouncing R sound in English? If your answer is yes, then this video may help you to improve your R pronunciation in English. Today we are going to talk about why Indonesian people R pronunciation differently from native speakers. The difference between R in Indonesia and in English. How to pronounce R like native speakers. There are two types of accent in pronouncing R. The first one is rhotic. Rhotic is in American accent and the R is in final position before a pause and a consonant sound. And the example for the rhotic sound is red, arrive. The second one is non-rhotic. Non-rhotic is commonly used in BBC pronunciation. In this accent, R only occurs before vowel sound. The example for this non-rhotic is car. We need to know that R is a consonant that is voiced post-alveolar proximant in chart of English consonant phoneme. Voice means that our vocal folds needs to vibrate when we pronounce the phoneme. Post-alveolar means that the tongue position is in contact with an area slightly further back than alveolar ridge. Proximant means that the articulators approach each other but do not get sufficiently close to each other to produce a complete consonant.
So, before we start explaining the R sound, we are going to share our personal experience regarding the R sound itself. For me personally, sometimes I have some trouble when trying to pronounce the correct R sound. I didn't care to correct my pronunciation back then, but now I see the importance of pronouncing the correct sounds. Some people may think this is a small thing, but for me, as a student, especially an English literature student, I must always strive to improve myself. Yes, if you pronounce all the R sound clearly, native speakers may understand you, but they might think your speech is funny and they will try to correct you. So, by pronouncing the sounds correctly, it might also give you some plus points with the native speakers.
Personally, I have trouble when I want to produce the R sound in non-rhotic accent, which is in British accent, because I'm an Indonesian people. I always pronounce R in clearly ways, while in British accent sometimes the R sound not produced. So I think it's difficult for me. And then in my elementary school, my junior high school, and then my high school, my teacher also taught me to American English, so I'm not used to talk in British English. And then I feel confused when I heard someone talks in British. So if I watch movie that the actor speaks in British, I chose to not watch this movie.
Now, I would like to ask you, our viewer, why do you think that some people have troubles in pronouncing the R sound. From our small survey, 9 participants out of 15 say that they have trouble in pronouncing the R sound. Some say it's because their tongue often slips when trying to pronounce the R sound. Others say it's because they cannot vibrate their tongue to pronounce the R sound. Others still say that their tongue often tight when trying to pronounce the R sound. Now, all of them are valid reasons as to why people can have troubles in pronouncing the R sound. But the biggest reason is, in English, the letter R can be pronounced strongly, vaguely, or not even pronounced at all. It's very different from Indonesian's pronunciation of letter R, in which the letter R is always pronounced strongly. So when an Indonesian person sees a word with the letter R, they assume it must be pronounced strongly, while in actuality, it can be pronounced vaguely or not even pronounced at all. So, what are the most common mistakes when people try to pronounce the R sound? First one, they usually, instead of R, they make a sound like D. So it's like D, D. The second one is, instead of R, they say W because their tongue doesn't vibrate. In English, the R sound can be found in 3 different places. The first one is in the beginning of a word. In English, when the R sound is found in the beginning of a word, it is pronounced clearly in both American and British accent. So for example, if you read the word raven or rough, both the R sound should be pronounced clearly. The second one is in the middle of a word. For this position, there is a difference between American and British accent. For words containing R and followed by a consonant, in the American accent, the R is still pronounced clearly, while in the British accent, it is pronounced vaguely. For example, in the American accent, you say learn, burn, but in the British accent, you say learn, burn. For words containing the letter R and followed by a vowel, then in both American and British accent, the R sound is pronounced clearly. So for example, very, hurry. The third position is at the end of the word. In American accent, when there's an R at the end of the word, the R is pronounced clearly. So for example, water, far, here. But in British accent, it is not pronounced at all. So for example, water, far, here.
Now, after we know why Indonesian people R pronunciation different from the native speakers, we are going to talk about how to pronounce R like native speakers.
So, how to exactly pronounce the R sound just like the native speakers? The first thing to remember is that the R is a voice alveolar approximant sound. So when you pronounce the R, make sure that you're making the voicing in your vocal folds. You can check it by touching your neck here, and when you can feel the vibration, you're doing the right thing. And the post-alveolar thing is, make sure that your tongue is placed in the post-alveolar area, that is after the alveolar ridge and before the mouth palate. But remember, the R sound is an approximant, so the tip of your tongue doesn't touch the post-alveolar area. And the second thing to remember is, make sure you push your lips, so your lips making the O shape to correctly pronounce the R. And the third thing to remember is that there are two ways to create the R sound, and even though the tongue placement is different, the sounds that are created are pretty similar. The first method is called solid method, and when you pronounce the R sound with this method, make sure that the back of your tongue is raised, so the sides of your tongue touch the back teeth. And the second method is called dash method. When you pronounce the R sound with this method, the tip of your tongue is raised and curled back behind the tooth ridge. And the center of the back of your tongue stays low, so the air travels through this groove to create the sound. And the tip of your tongue may point upward or may be left low. So the sound of the R will sound like R. Make sure that both sides of your tongue touch the back teeth. Contrasting with the first method, in this method, when you pronounce the R, make sure that the sides of your tongue do not touch the back teeth, while you try to raise it and curl it behind the tooth ridge. So the sound of the R will sound like R. So when you use the first method to produce the R sound will sound like R. R. Make sure that the sides of your tongue touch the back teeth. And if you use the second method, the sound will sound like R. R. These two methods still need the process of pursing the lips, because the lips need to make the small O shape to pronounce the R. But when you try to pronounce the R sound with the second method after pronouncing it with the first method, you can feel the difference when you try to pronounce the R. I personally feel that when I try to pronounce the R sound with the second method after the first method, I can feel that the R sound is sounded like slightly thicker than when I try to pronounce it with the first method. For example, when I use the first method, the sound of the rhyme word will sound like rhyme, and when I try to pronounce it with the second method, the sound will be like rhyme. Maybe you don't hear the difference, but if you try to pronounce the word with the two different methods, you somehow can feel that the second method gives the thickness when you try to pronounce the R sound. So to differentiate the two different ways to pronounce the R sound between the first method and the second method, we can try to compare them by pronouncing the words that contain the R sound using the first method first, and then we can pronounce them again with the second method. When using the first method, the words that contain the R sound will be sounded like rhyme, rat, hungry, angry. Then when using the second method, those words will sound like rhyme, rat, hungry, angry. You can experiment between these two methods to find the best method for you to pronounce the R. So you can pronounce the R sound correctly, just like the native speakers, while you also enjoy the process of pronouncing the R sound.
So, from the earlier explanation, what makes Indonesian people have trouble when pronouncing the R in English is in Indonesian language, the R is pronounced clearly at all words, while in English, the R sound can be pronounced strongly, vaguely, or not pronounced at all. And the R sound in English can be found in three places. The first one is in the beginning of the word, the second one is in the middle of the word, and the third one is in the end of the word. have some suggestions for you to improve your R pronunciation in English. The first thing is learn to listen. When you're listening to English songs or watching a movie, try to pay attention to the singer or actor, how they pronounce the R sound. The second one is notice your mouth and lips move. The simplest way to notice your mouth and lips move are use your mirror. For this way, you can use your camera to record yourself, so you can hear how you pronounce the R sound and then you can see how your mouth and your lips move. And the last one is try to practice more and more and more.
So, after watching this video, we hope that Indonesian people can be more aware when trying to pronounce the R sound, because R sound in English is different than the R sound in Indonesian.
And also, we hope that you can improve your R pronunciation by using the two methods, which are the solid method and the dashed method, as mentioned before.
Hopefully this video will be beneficial for you, and don't forget to apply the suggestion that we have given before to your everyday life to make you speak and pronounce R like native speakers. So here the end
Of our video,
Of the phonetics and phonology class.
and goodbye!
Bye!